like you were saying, and you too, Deborah, these peripheral relationships, like everybody's scared of them. There's a lot of confusion.
It was just fascinating to go through all of that, carrying my business and stuff alone. At least I thought I was alone at first.
Technology and like just trying to learn and like actually trying to adapt quickly with what the need was. And so there was a lot of thankfulness there for that, and I think there was a tremendous amount of growth, at least in my field.
Thanks so much for joining our Real Talk conversations.
Yeah, these conversations are not just about the difficulties or hardship or politics or COVID or any of that, but it really is just real talk, people getting together and sharing their hearts.
We hope that these conversations help anchor you in who God is and what He's doing in you and through you in this season and the seasons ahead.
God bless you guys.
What's it for?
Wonderful. Wonderful. This is what we're going to be chatting about. So yeah, the whole point that we desired to do this is all of us, and this is so fun because you guys are in different stages of life and where you're at and experiences, but I felt, and a lot of people have felt, just the miss in just letting. There's been a lot. What was the conversation we had last time? There was like this phrase that came up, just a lot of missed moments. To just conversate. That's not a word, but I like it. Around just life and how's it been for you and your experiences, and even relating to different people or how it's been for them, or what has been themes that God's been bringing you into. This is really just a conversation. It's not a political conversation. It's not a COVID conversation. It's not a, like literally, the whole time that we're going to be talking, it's more just share your heart. Thanks for being a part of this. This is amazing. And let's just go around the room and just kind of share who you are and kind of what stage of life you're in, working, living, being a mom, kind of just share where you're at in stage of life.
You want me to go?
Yeah, let's do it.
Sure, I can start.
This one?
Yes, I think all you guys know me. I'm Nathan.
Yeah.
I am currently in my last year at Colorado State, studying mechanical engineering, and I'm part of our college ministry, as well as I'm actually starting youth this semester,
Nice.
so I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, I graduate in May. I'm looking
Nice.
forward to it. And I also got a chance to publish a children's book recently.
I saw
And I
that.
worked
Is
with...
it official?
Yeah, it's out.
Whoa, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's so exciting.
Yeah, it's really cool. I was spending time with God one night, and I just felt the Holy Spirit start to speak this poem to me. So I just started writing it, and I was like, wow, this is definitely divine. And
It's awesome.
one of my roommates encouraged me to, or he suggested that it sounded like a kid's book, and so I was like, that could work. And I
Super cool.
contacted Hannah Sersenis, and she did all the parts. So
Super cool.
What is it called?
The Maker's Cup.
Oh, that's amazing.
On Amazon?
Yeah.
Nice.
Nice.
So, but yeah, that's a little bit.
That's a little about you, yeah. How about you, Deborah?
I'm Deborra. You guys know Judah. He's about to turn 3. So busy being a mom. I am working, doing my private practice with marriage and family therapy. Been doing that a lot, and actually just became a student again. So I just started my PhD in the
Whoa.
fall, so getting my doctorate in marriage and family therapy. So
We get to
Yeah,
call you
really
Dr.
Yes!
I'm looking forward to
Dr.
that.
Deb.
Dr. Deb.
That's awesome. Yeah.
That's so fun.
That's awesome. How about you, Cheryl?
I'm Cheryl, and I have a 9-month-old puppy.
Yes, good.
And I'm a massage therapist, have my own business, and I own a school, the Herb School of Massage Therapy and Aesthetics, and single, doing that thing. No kids, and
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
just moved to space, so new space. A
Yeah.
lot of fun stuff. That's really
Yeah, I moved the business recently.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet.
It's good.
Stu, how about you, brother?
Let's see. So my name is Stuart, and married. Have a teenage son who's actually done with high school and is in his college classes already. Have my own have my own business. I was career military, retired, and got here with my family, and yeah, that's about us, I think.
Nice.
In a nutshell.
That's awesome. Well, we've it's kind of fun here. You know, you're all I mean, it's a very diverse group. You know, all different kind of stages of life, and you can popcorn here, whoever wants to jump in. But kind of just how has the last season been? We've all lived through 2020. Now we're in 2021, and kind of share a little bit of what the situation or kind of your story has been. I'd love to just hear how your stories have been in 2020. Anyone jump in first?
When the shutdown started, for me and my school, we were finishing a class, massage class, great class. And so I had to, in the midst of what's going on and who knows what, we had to switch to online, which I don't do. And so Zoom, you know, was my life.
Yes.
And we didn't do it that much, but just that transition. So I think with some of the technical stuff, the transition to lockdown was a little different because it wasn't just I'm locked down and now I'm home and it's over. I had to completely relearn, not relearn, learn it for the first time, the technology part. And my students were amazing, and we did it. It was great, and we ended strong. But that was really interesting. Meanwhile, because they shut down my business, personal services and healthcare massage, so I couldn't do body work.
Yeah.
So trying to negotiate my clients, especially the ones that were chronic pain, how do we do that? And talking with them. I mean, there was a lot of pressure, and a lot of stuff to process about letting people down because I couldn't do it in person.
Right.
And everybody was wonderful. I had no negativity to deal with, but it was just unique. And then the background of that is Facebook way too much in the massage groups that I'm in, good professional groups. People losing their minds about what's happening and what do we do and what is it and how do we kill it and what if we go back to work and just all the science of it and the regulations for us because we had quite a bit. It was just really hard, and then once that finished, took some time. It kind of got my bearings a little, but I call it the deep dark quarantine because some of that living alone at the time I didn't have a puppy. I was incredibly isolated, and I had electrical connections if I wanted them. Our life group met back then a little bit, but it was just fascinating to go through all of that, carrying my business and stuff alone. At least I thought I was alone at first, and then I'm like, oh wait, I'm spiritual, and then stuff pops in, and I'm like, oh wait, but then I forgot it, but it's like, oh yeah. Okay, there's more to hear for me than these people that are here. But it was dark for a little bit, really dark, and just worry and anxiousness and stuff. So, thank goodness that's flipped. For sure.
Has it? Did you use that as like an opportunity? That's funny that all of the different massage. You probably connected with a lot of different people. So was it? A season where you were able to speak kind of some peace in life and to other people in your sphere?
So at first, we were all freaking out and worrying. And then, when I remembered Jesus, and I became, instead of participating in the worry, or even the details in the facts, which I love that facts stuff, science. This is the reality. And then, so that's out of the way. Same people ask the same questions over and over, or different people ask the same questions over and over on these pages. But I consciously decided, and I think God told me to do, I'm the one that's going to be calm and remind them, this will end. There will be a plan. Don't freak out. And started walking. That's what my posts were like on the professional pages were. And what was fun So on these massage therapy pages, there's Christians everywhere, but we don't usually talk about it as much. It's definitely either people are super sciencey, and more than anything, they're more spiritual but not religious, new agey kind of stuff. So the language that we use when we interact, even if we're talking about spiritual stuff, usually isn't Christianese, like you said, or even just say Jesus. Yeah. But many of us that were Christian, I didn't even know they were Christians before, would actually say Jesus in our posts. So it was just kind of, there was a boldness there to speak it, but it was so powerful. The people that were like, oh, Jesus, they would respond, thank you, amen. I had no idea there were that many Christians on this page. Yeah. So it was just through that opportunity, and then I had to get off it because then it was just a little too crazy. But I would still pop on and be, hopefully, ray of sunshine. But I did, but very consciously say, I can't convince people to not be worried, but I can help them remember that this will pass, that there's a thing, and we can just take it step by step, and they're not alone, and there's choices and opportunities to be the light in this particular season, even in our little sphere. And it was received very well. I was kind of happy about that.
I think that's interesting, Cheryl's journey. How have you guys responded we've all gone through like this tech intrigue and relationships changing and how we're connecting, and I heard someone say recently, like, I feel I'm more comfortable now to jump on Zoom with my neighbor than to go and say hi to my neighbor. You know what I mean? Like, how has it, like, your journey has been? That was just someone's journey. How has it been for you guys just in this technological, expansion of communication, in your spheres of life? Any thoughts?
What's funny is my experience was probably the opposite of what Cheryl went through with my business. So everything I did was remote anyway. I do that. So before lockdown, I've been on Zoom every single day of the week, sessions with clients. Right?
Wow.
So when the lockdown happened, my business quadrupled. Like, I was more busier.
Wow.
So for me, that part was the opposite. And then we went to life groups on Zoom.
Yeah.
And that's, for me, where I found the biggest, wait a second, this doesn't work, because even though you're seeing everybody, you can't interact, right? Only one person can talk at a time. So it's like, hey, how you doing?
It's a little difficult.
And then 6 people, and then finally everybody waits, and
you're all like,
we're all Christians, we're all polite. You go, no, you go. No, you go. Somebody just tell me how you're doing, right? Yeah. So for me and my wife, that became a struggle, was life group, because you're seeing them, but it's hard to get that connection digitally. Yeah. That was probably the hardest,
Yeah.
But from a business standpoint, I was just blessed with what I did. It was already remote, so I just, hired more people, right? And we were fine. Things were great. And then in September, the company that I work closely with changed their business model completely and terminated about 100 of us with no warning.
Wow.
So I lost all those clients and a lot of money. And then I was just like, wow, okay, now what are we going to do, right? Yeah. And I think for me, when the lockdown started, because we had thought, my wife and I both thought we had COVID before the lockdown started, so we were already on lockdown. And then literally the day before we were to come out of lockdown, the state went into lockdown again.
Yes.
So we were like, oh my gosh, and my wife's birthday came and went. Maverick's birthday came and went on lockdown. That was really hard. But I think for the longest time, my wife and I had the same idea. Probably a lot of us did. Oh, this will end pretty soon, right? Next month. And I think about midsummer, we realized, I don't know if this is going to end. We had to have that talk with our son. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
Sports, they're gone for now. I don't know if they're going to come back. And we really have to change how we look at life. And that was something that I wasn't ready for, because, life had been going great. And all of a sudden, it's like, after a while, you're like, okay, it's going to stop. And then when you realize, okay, it's not going to stop, well, man, what do I do now?
Yeah.
And I had friends even here locally that they didn't want to hang out They didn't want to meet. They were terrified of COVID. And, everybody's on a different place with that, and that's fine. So it was probably about midsummer that's when I felt God really started changing things in my heart. And let me rephrase that. I probably came to a point where I realized I had things in my heart.
Your heart has changed. Be honest.
I just didn't realize I had all these things in there.
Yeah.
All these things that I wanted. And
That's good.
I had dreams and
So
plans.
Yeah.
And man, I had to cut the Christianese out because it wasn't helping. It wasn't bringing me hope. Right? It just wasn't. So.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know if that makes sense. But
Totally.
Yeah.
What about you guys? How's the? You can answer whatever you want. Technology or past, experienced life. How's it been and your journey through it?
I think if we're talking technology with business, it's been. I think I felt aware of the overwhelming need of the people of our city or society with mental health, and so I think I felt really thankful for technology and just trying to learn and actually trying to adapt quickly with what the need was, and so I think there was a lot of thankfulness there for that, and I think there was a tremendous amount of growth, at least in my field, around technology and how to use that to really help people in the area of mental health, and so that was a lot of work, and I felt really thankful. I don't think that it felt like it was as much use for convenience, or people prefer technology for therapy or for relationships, and so I think that wasn't as much of the question as it was how do we meet the needs of people. And
how did that feel for some? I couldn't, if I was in therapy with you, which I'm not, but if I was, and it's I'm in person, and then it goes how was that process for helping individuals feel this transition, and
yeah, it was, I think, different for each person. I mean, and I had my own process with it.
Yeah.
And I think I haven't met anyone who prefers video or teletherapy to in person.
Yeah.
But I think I think there was just a way to process through what are the difficulties and how can we be thankful for what we do have and
That's
stay
good.
connected. And so I think that was a little bit of that process. And then I think personally, I think, life with everything going electronic, I think for me, I actually felt like it narrowed my social circle to people that I could connect with. Because I think sometimes we have so many peripheral relationships, especially with the capacity that technology gives us now, and so I think going into COVID and having some of those restrictions made me actually narrow my life down and even focus on relationships that really, where there is depth and I can connect, and
That's good.
whether it's with a little pod, or I think different people have different ways of doing that.
Yeah.
And I think that was actually, I think I felt more thankful for the people in my life that I could connect with in whatever way that was in that time, instead of, I think, just this mass of relationships and friendships and social networks that we have going on. So I think that last year it felt like my social sphere narrowed, but in a really good way, and I felt really thankful for the people and relationships I had. So.
Yeah, I love that phrase you said. I've never heard it said like that. Peripheral relationships, that has a totally different connotation. Especially in 2020, where it's we all truly figured out who would go the length of the extra mile or the depth for us, or communicate, all that stuff. What was the phrase we were using the other day? It really, our humanity and who we were, we couldn't hide behind it anymore. It really became, which is so funny because we're hiding behind all these technological things, but it really just exposed who we are as the peripheral relationship. I like that.
I think I read a long time ago that there's a sociology research, and it was humans are really capable of holding maybe 5 to 10 on average, 7 relationships or groups, 7 people, and really you can't hold more than that, really. And I think it's astonishing because we all do in some way.
Try
And so I tried to, and we naturally, and that's how kind of working like social like breaks down to smaller groups. And so I think even with that, it was so interesting to see our world go through this process of actually like getting smaller and narrow and figuring out what really matters and how to really hold relationships.
Yeah. Wow. So good. What about you, Amy? How's the past year been for you? Yeah.
Well, it's been pretty crazy just thinking back as everyone was speaking, because I went with the ATS trip to help lead that when they went to Costa Rica in December and January, and so I went from like doing a lot of travel and kind of just normal life, into COVID lockdown, and I would say definitely pressed on me from a lot of angles, and I think when everything was first kind of happening, when we found out about COVID and all of that, I think there was definitely a lot of emotion stirred in me, and like a lot of freedoms that I didn't want to give up, and a lot of places that I feared like being controlled by other people, by the government, by even like people that I care about, just like telling me what I should or shouldn't do and stuff. And I think that made me worried, but when I went and spent time with the Lord, I felt like He just really gave me a lot of peace, and His invitation was to fight for relationship over being right or wrong during the COVID season. I didn't know it would last a year plus or whatever.
Yes.
But I think that's kind of like the thing I've been trying to work through in the last 9 months or whatever, has been like, how do I walk into a situation to best honor the people that I'm with instead of doing what I think is right or wrong. And so like depending on the group of people that I'm around, or like my work situation or what have you, kind of like dictated my reaction to everything that's been going on.
Yeah.
And so I think like you were saying, like the COVID situation has definitely pressed on people from all angles, and has really like exposed a lot of places where we are not acting godly, or where like honestly like digging up things that in my life had been there but were just buried deep, and I didn't even know they were there, and when they came up I was just like, how do I navigate this? This is just like confusing. And beyond the last year, I think the Lord has really just been diving deep with me in my relationship with Him, because I think one of the things that I've really gotten breakthrough in is like a spirit of performance, like feeling like, okay, there's a right and a wrong, and I have to do the right thing for the Lord, and I have to like perform for Him in different ways. And when I was first starting to follow the Lord, that came out a lot in like comparison to other people, like I have to like compete with people who are my peers or godly men and women that I see, and I want to be like them, and I have to like perform this way. And the Lord really like did an awesome work to set me free from that. But then in the last couple of years, that's kind of also dug up in a place where I'm just like, okay, well, I'm not comparing myself to others, but I need to do things for the Lord, just to show Him like that I care, like that I'm a good son and stuff. And so this year, and like even the past couple of years, have really pressed on that. And actually just recently I've gotten a lot of breakthrough and freedom. And Chris's sermon today was so good. It just felt like, yes, this is like exactly what the Lord's been teaching me, that kind of first love thing that like, man, it's kind of difficult to put in words, but Jesus, like Austin Hawks has been talking a lot about this too, like the difference between bringing our insight from the spirit of, or from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil versus the tree of life. And it's really tempting for us to take judgment into our own hands and like determine, okay, this is right, this is wrong. And then like my whole life gets so confusing and I don't know what's right or wrong. Some people are doing this and that. And God's really invited me to just be like, okay, that's actually, like, I'm free from that. Like, Christ set me free from that, so now I get to pull from the Spirit of tree of life, and that is Christ. And
Wow.
so the invitation there has really been like, and you know, you hear this and it sounds like something you've heard over and over, but once it clicks, it's like, oh, that's what that means. But
Yeah.
set your eyes on Jesus, not worrying about what I should or shouldn't do, and just like allowing the Lord to lead me. And I think that's been a big thing, and also like just the love of the Lord. Like, there's so many times when I just think the Lord is mad at me, or where I don't know His gentle hand or anything like that. But when I get into His presence, I'm just reminded like He's actually standing right beside me, looking at me like His Son. He just has so much love and grace and mercy for me. And I think a lot of the times like that can slip away from us, especially during times of crisis. But I'm really thankful for this last year, because it's definitely dug up a lot of things in me. But just giving me a chance to respond and grow closer to the people in my community. And yeah, it's been good.
Wow.
There's a lot to say. But
Yeah, no, I love it. You said this thing earlier that you said, you know, you chose to start fighting, or I don't know, or just you made that the thing, is to fight for relationships.
Yeah.
And what I'd love to hear, just from everyone's perspective here, like, what have you done to fight for a relationship in this season, or for family of God, or for maybe your neighbors, your friends, or what has someone done for you to fight for you? I'll share an example. I think we were at the beginning, Shannon and I, we went into this whole thing, right, March, and we said, you know what, no matter what we're feeling right now, we are going to make people feel loved and not isolated, not separated, and try to have people over for dinner, and we're doing this. And, you know, 3 months in, we're like, this is so tiring. Like, I'm done with relationships. Like, that's how we felt, you know? And then someone invited us over for dinner to their house, and the first thing that goes through my mind is, oh, what's wrong? What did we do wrong? You know, what did I offend them? You know, I'm trying to like fix all these relationships in my head, and then we get there, we have a wonderful dinner with them, and hang out. Our kids are playing and just enjoying, and we walked away. We're like, wow, this is weird that we had like fear, you know, while we're trying to help others, and it just feels so refreshing, you know, when someone loves you in such a season that's difficult. So, you can answer the question however, but like, how have you fought for relationships and people in this season, or how's someone fought for you?
I'll jump on that one.
Yeah.
I don't mind at all. So, and I know we're talking a lot about COVID, but we also had a political election this year. It's kind of major. Not to make it about politics, but that totally influenced, and I think we can say that probably for everybody, influenced relationships in all of our lives, good or bad, right? So the lockdown started, and you know, we were 6, and we went into 8 weeks, and finally some of our friends and life group people, you know, we kind of got this sense from them that everybody's just, we're tired of Zoom, like, can't do it.
Yeah. Yes.
So we said, hey,
zoomed out.
We're gonna buy some food. We're gonna have people over and have a get together. And I understand what the protocols are, and we respect that. And if you're uncomfortable, you can wear a mask. You don't have to come. There's absolutely no pressure.
Yeah.
So they came over. Our neighbor came over with his girlfriend, and it ended up being just this night where we laughed hysterically and had a blast. And everybody was like, I can't believe we haven't done this sooner.
Wow.
Because we didn't realize how much fear we all carried
Yes.
with COVID.
Yeah.
We just didn't realize.
Totally.
And then as we progressed through the year, right, we had a presidential election. And if you're on Facebook for more than 5 minutes, you realize that's a hot topic for everybody. So that became another area. Like, I realized, even as a life leader, how I even presented myself, like you said, prevents me sometimes from loving people the right way. And the discussion came up in life group, hey, why won't you put a Trump sign in your yard, right? And I was like, well, I'll tell you why I won't do it. Because first off, I love Jesus first. And secondly, I'm not here to offend my neighbors, but if I have a sign up for any political party and my neighbor is adamantly opposed to it, I now can't love them. And one of our neighbors is adamantly opposed. And he had come over in the middle of the night, had an issue with his wife, which ended up being very tragic, but he wouldn't have come over and let us take care of him until the police got there if we had lived our lives like that, right? So that just kind of opened up my eyes to this, like you were saying, and you too, Deborah, these peripheral relationships, like everybody's scared. There's a lot of confusion, and anybody can suck up a painful experience when there's an end date. Right? But when you take away that end date, I don't know what to do. And we cling, and I think we, as a general statement, cling to the hope that people say on TV. We cling to what our friends tell us. There's going to be a vaccine. There's going to be this. There's going to be that. That's not really hope, though.
Yeah.
Right? So for me, my pendulum swung totally different, especially in the month of September, October. Once I got fired, I had a lot of time to think. I just realized, people are everything. Relationships, they're literally everything. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, everything. And I just decided, I can't follow certain people on Facebook because, hey, I don't care what they say, but there's other people in my life that read that, and they lose hope. And I can't live like that. I just can't live like that. So for me, that just became this place. And my wife and I both were like, we have to love people where they're at. We have to. And I'm not going to be identified by a political party, by a stance. I want to be identified as, man, Stu and Sheila, we just love going to their house, man. They've always been a lot of fun to hang out with. And, when my parents both had COVID, they took care of, helped me out, took care of me. Or when my wife died, which is what happened with our other neighbor, they were there, helping us out. So that's kind of like part of the process we went through, toward the end of 2020.
Yeah. So, anyone else have any relationships they fought for or been fought for?
I definitely had been wanting to develop some closer friendships, and I have some.
Amen. Are we all? Hallelujah.
And,
I'm with you, Cheryl.
Yeah, right. And that's so funny. You live in a zoo at your house with all these people, and you still want to do the same thing. That breaks my heart. Which is part of what this is, right? And talking to other people to realize once I started saying that to the women I wanted to get to know better, I got it back, and they said the same, and that was very sweet. And I agree with you. You don't need a million friends. You need some good, tight ones in your inner circle where you can be deep and go those places, and especially if they're, Jesus lovers and stuff. But the idea that, so I fought for some of those, and I made contact with some, and we hosted a life group on a porch this summer for women, and really anybody could come, but it was the women, and it was just so wonderful. And the whole idea of learning to love the people that are right in front of me, that kind of was highlighted, and you guys spoke to that a little bit. It's like whoever I'm in front of, if I'm going to go get Thai food from my favorite place once a week because I want to support their business, I am going to be a delight there. And I'm going to tip ridiculous because I was blessed to be able to do it. And it was wonderful. So some of that loving, I want to be identified as someone that will love you if you come into my presence. And of course, I'm not successful 100% of the time. That was the goal.
Yeah.
And for me to be able to be that for my clients, staying in touch with them, calling them, especially the ones that were really fearful about going out. I have a unique population. A lot of them are high risk. So just an email or a phone call to my 86-year-old who's still at home. And when we opened up, I go see her. I don't charge the home visit, fee. I just go. Yeah. And so to go through the mental gymnastics of, well, if this was normal, I'd charge extra. And I was like, you don't need to charge extra. I gave you 12 students in the middle of a pandemic. I'm like, oh, yeah. Which is another fun thing. 12 people signed up to go to a touch, face-to-face training for a year in a pandemic.
Wow.
So I'm over here freaking out, and God's like, okay, go to her school, I have double. It's crazy.
Wow, praise God.
So I get to, financially I don't have to worry. Now, at the beginning I was worried. We did beautiful things. This church, what y'all have done to stay in touch with us from the very beginning, even to now, but even in the super dark and going through what it takes to put on an outdoor service, which was awesome. I like it outside. I brought my dog to church. It was fun. But the recordings, the streamings, the Austin talking, and the updates and everything that you guys have done, you're always like, yay! It's like, yeah. Oh wait, yeah. It's just fun to. So even digitally, Zoom fatigue is what we call it.
Yes, it's okay.
It is.
So probably be written in the DSM manual.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm certain. So the bigger picture, supported from the church, and then even some financially, people got to donate and support businesses. I was a recipient of that, and it was done. It was a surprise. I had no idea how much it would be. The way it was done was actually supporting my business, not just giving me money, which I thought was genius. And some of the bigger things. And then the smaller things are the individual texts from your friends. Hi, I'm thinking about you. We love you.
Yeah.
That one from you, and you're like, we just want to tell you we think you're hilarious, and something or another. And I think we had a worship get together.
Yeah. Yes.
And when we kind of could meet, it was kind of like what you described, Stu. And it was just very encouraging, and we laughed, and it was normal.
Yeah.
And then to come for rehearsal, when we started to meet again, it just felt normal to be with people, and I'm scared to hug you, and I'm not, and I don't want you to be mad, and it was just such a crazy time, and what the church did in all these different ways was so supportive. And your sweet wife, in one of the darkest sections, brought me a flower, made an appointment, and just wanted to meet me face to face, and brought me a flower.
Yeah.
And I mean to tell you, that was amazing. And so sweet. And all the text and all that's sweet too. But I'm going to make a point coming over. I'm going to come over now. Is that okay? It wasn't even can I. It was, I can come over now. Is that okay? Or I can come over then. Is that okay? And I was like, sure. I mean, there was just no, not that I would have said no, but I wouldn't call it pushy. She was just determined. And I appreciated it so much. And I had that flower out and I was like, oh. It was just the sweetest thing. So you get these little pepperings of things from people that you know. And I know I did that for other people too.
Yeah.
I didn't push myself and make them take a flower, but I kind of wish I would now. But the encouragement, I can't remember how it came out, but to speak encouragement to people. And just more intentionally.
Yeah.
And that's a way I can love someone. And if I'm praying, that's who comes in. I'm going to pray for you, and then I'm also going to send you, hi, I love you.
Yeah.
Have a good day. All my students, just recently, maybe a month ago, I was praying, and I start out with Thanksgiving and kind of do the Jesus Hour formula, Thanksgiving, and then worship, and which I ended up writing them all emails. Very specifically, God, what do you want them to know? What do you want me to say? How can I encourage them? And I didn't get all weird and preachy about it, but it was direct and a little risky.
Yeah.
But I can talk to them. I am an authority figure in the room, and I hope I'm a little more calm and stable than maybe I'm like, okay, so this is hard, and we're okay. Let's relax today. We're not going to learn anything. And they're like, oh my gosh, Cheryl, thank you. And they learn something, how to relax. So later I'm like, you're going to learn how to do that, but today I'm going to do it to you. They're like, awesome. And the responses I got were so amazing. So even, it's just the receiving the little pepperings of it, and then feeling enough to give back out. And I don't know, it's such a treasure to be able to do it. And then
definitely,
especially if you're the one that kind of does that, when people push into you, like I'm more likely to ask for help now than I was before this started. And to say, let's do something, or I'm lonely, or let's go, and, just that.
Yeah. Totally.
Really cool.
Totally.
I liked what you were saying about, spending time with the Lord and just being, letting thankfulness come over you, and then it just inspired you to be like, oh, I think I'm going to write an email to all my students and just encourage them and tell them. I'm assuming you told them what
so
God
good.
says about them and all that stuff.
Absolutely. They each got a scripture.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Even the super duper new agey.
Yes.
I'm sure they love
Shoot,
that.
they thought it was awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
You say next time, this crazy wild book about dreams and visions, prophecies. I'm going to share something from it for you, the Bible.
Yeah, right.
That's so good. No, that's cool.
Yeah.
I think during this year, that's been a big thing, like a learning curve for me too, is like, there's times where I'm like, oh, I want to serve people, I want to do nice things, but it's hard, like I don't really feel like it and all these things. But then when I actually just go and spend time with the Lord and don't have any expectation, He just like fills my heart with joy, and it's just like, wow, I want to just go out and love everyone. It's just an overflow of spending time with Him. So
Yeah.
I really can relate to that. Just like, I think that's been something this semester.
Yeah.
And kind of like what Stuart was saying too, it has been so tense with like social media, specifically with the virus and the election, and everything has just been like really just overwhelming to log online and just like see everybody's opinion, and it feels like everyone's like a lot more aggressive on the internet than they would ever be in real life. But I think something that has been important to me is like if I discuss these things, to do it with people that like really know my heart towards them and really actually know how much I care and love about them, because it can be really easy for me to just like write up a post if I'm frustrated by something, and like you're saying, that is like an easy way for people to be driven away, or people that are in my peripheral to only see that post and then assume a bunch of things from other people that they've had encounters with besides me, without actually knowing how I feel towards them or the situation. And so I think something that has been cool to fight for with relationship has been like, okay, I actually want people to know first and foremost how much I love them and how much the Lord loves them, and then kind of like all this other stuff that's coming against them is just other stuff, and we can figure that out together in relationship and meeting, face to face or over text or whatever, just like, I think that has taken the edge off of a lot of like situations that could have been toxic if I had just like thrown it out there or responded in frustration or something like that. But kind of going to what you're asking about serving people, something that started for me during this pandemic was I started dating Cammie, and that's been awesome and so challenging because we actually started
You mean in a good way. In a good way. In case she's watching.
Oh, yeah.
Clarify that.
What I mean by challenging? No, I mean like challenging, like with all the regulations and restrictions. Like, for example, we actually had our first date on Zoom during quarantine.
Oh gosh.
We spent like the first month dating on Zoom, and so like that was extremely challenging. And it was difficult to be like, okay, how do I fight to pursue this person when I can't see them, and the only way I can talk to them is like over Zoom or on the phone. And so I think that like really pushed me into like what it looks like to fight for a relationship when it's not convenient. And so like care packages or just like going out of your way to call someone and check in on them, and she did the same for me in a ton of ways, and I'm so thankful for that.
Wow.
But I think like something that COVID has done is like it's made it inconvenient to care about people. And so like you were saying, when people actually go out of their way, like Shannon, to bring you a flower and like to do kind things for you, or to text you and call you and just make it known that you're cared about, it actually kind of strikes a chord that's deeper than normal, because you're like, wow, it is tense times, but people are going out of their way to really honor me and love me, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
So have you had face-to-face dates?
We've had plenty of cases.
You're like, no, we're still on Zoom.
That ended a long time ago. Although I actually did have to quarantine from like December 2nd until like January 2nd.
Yeah.
So just recently I had like a month where I didn't see her again.
Mm.
Yeah.
So it's definitely had its challenges.
Sure, totally.
But yeah, it's been good. Plenty of face-to-face.
Yeah. What about you, Deborah, in this season? Fought for a relationship or a story or anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, I think relationships this last year have felt hard in that I think it has been truly one of the hardest years of my life, and personally, like lots of personal disappointment, and I think just coming like to terms with, I mean, some of the worst parts of myself, some of the worst parts of people I really care about, and really wrestling through that around what does it look like to deal with that and hold that for myself, for people. What does it look like to love someone that is hurts other people or is hurting me? And so it just has felt really challenging.
Yeah.
And I think for me, and then I think even with at a societal level, I think there's also been, the racial tension, like a lot of the really messy parts of our society, of humanity. And I think wrestling with that this year, one of the ways I think for me has been to actually have some really hard conversations, whether it's been to just talk about some of these things with people I trust, or having conflict and conversations I don't want to have, and with God, like just me and God, or with people, and saying, hey, I don't understand what's going on here, and asking people those questions. And so I think, I think for me this year has felt one of the ways that I've pushed into relationships has been to not run away from the hard, messy, really ugly parts of people, myself included, and to just try to figure out how to do that with God, with people, and so it's been messy.
What has been the anchor through it all in this season of your relation or your communication with God, your relationship with God? What has really been the thing that's anchored you in the midst of all of this? And let's throw that around for a little while. What's been God's been doing in you through all this? And
I don't know if this is so much the anchor, but I feel like this is the theme, which is it has felt, I think I just feel more than ever that I'm just really broken, and I don't know, and I feel deeply desperate for Jesus, and for him in my life, and in the people's lives around me. And I think I just keep coming back to that over and over again. That I think would have maybe, like, I don't know what's right and wrong. I don't know all the things. I don't know how to navigate this really hard situation or relationship, but I can keep coming back to God and be broken with Him because He's safe, and trust that He's safe for the people around me, and that somehow that there's gonna be, like, that is a bridge for my situation, for me, for the broken places in me, for broken relationships in my life. And so I think just coming back to that over and over again.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Powerful.
Well, you are amazing.
You are, Deborah. We love you.
You are so amazing.
So amazing.
But I hope you know that that's like, I just think that's a really powerful place to be in. Just I think, when the word talks about when we are weak, then He is strong. Like it, just knowing how much we need the Lord is almost like a place to be envious of. Like, oh, Deborah's in this place where she just wants Jesus more than anything. You're just like, oh, that sounds so sweet, because that's when the Lord's strength just comes through, and you're just like, God's awesome.
Yeah.
So, that's an encouraging place.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think along very, very similar lines. I mentioned earlier my pendulum was, swinging from one place to the next, and a lot of my life I was in the service, and I spent a lot of time overseas, and my friends would always ask me, "Hey, what do you think's going to happen with this and with that?" And 2020 made me realize I don't have an answer. I just don't. I never saw anything like this in my radar. Right?
Yeah. There's no pandemic handbook out there.
There's not a handbook. If there is, I haven't found it.
Yeah.
But what I came to realize is I don't know, and I have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
And then when you get into the relational strain of the people in our lives, my wife and I just reached this point because she lovingly reminded me, even when we disagree with people, if they love Jesus, we're going to spend eternity with them. And how weird is that going to be? We're standing there in eternity, and we're like, how'd you get in? Right? It's kind of weird. And I realized I got to change how I look at this, right? And they kind of led me on that path of, Lord, I don't know what to do. I don't know what the answer is. But I know people matter.
Yeah.
And that's what it came down to. And maybe I don't always have the right answer, but I know that if I'm putting Jesus first and I'm focusing on trying to be somebody like a man of unity and not dissension.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think we've all seen people parting ways, in the church, at home, in families, friendships, and that is never God's heart. It's never God's heart. And even though I don't have the answers, I know Jesus does. And one thing that I've done, and my wife has done, is we've committed to the people in our lives who are our friends, and we go out of our way to reach out to them, to hang out with them, spend time with them. And that's just been, for that anchoring point, I guess, because that's what the original question was, being honest with myself in front of my family and in front of my life group. And I told them, I was like, I don't have all the answers. I don't. Jesus does. We don't have to have them written out today.
Right.
And then, James 5:19 and 20, that passage talks about if somebody, a brother or sister in Christ, walks away and you can be there for them and bring them back, that covers a multitude of sins. Because there's so much confusion for everybody, right? At every level. And people are turning away from the faith.
Yeah.
They're turning away in numbers we've never seen.
Yeah.
And my wife and I are like, we just love our friends, and we're not going to allow, falsehoods and lies and things that aren't true and worry and anxiety to be our friends, distraction from who Jesus is.
Yeah.
So we just keep hosting events and parties because we like to
Let's
gather people.
Would you like to say your address then? So we know.
Sorry in advance, babe. But,
I think it's cool. I think I'm very thankful for the way that our family pushes each other into spending time with the Lord. Because honestly, during this whole time, that has felt like an anchor. Is like, how do I run to Jesus right now? How do I get direction?
Yeah.
So I think what you're saying, it's really difficult when you're not spending time with the Lord to have that breakthrough or freedom, that when you're running after Jesus, you just feel covered, and I'm thankful that our family, that's what I feel like we're always pushing is FaceTime or whatever.
Yeah.
And that just has really empowered me to seek after the Lord, and when people actually know what it looks like to run after Jesus or to have that secret place and spend time with Him, then even when the church is shaken, the people can still be anchored in.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And that was a part of it, not to monopolize, but for me, I had to cut the Christian fat out of my life. Right? I have a pretty big family, and they live in different states, and they just constantly wanted to talk about the end times. And I love the book of Revelation. I love it. That's something I've read and I read constantly. But Chris mentioned it today. Doctrine doesn't bring intimacy. That's what he said, right?
Yeah.
And some of that stuff is kind of carpet color. We're going to argue about, this is going to happen, that's going to happen. Have I shared the message of the gospel with somebody today? And that's what God convicted me of.
Yeah.
Have you talked to somebody about Jesus that just needs to know that they're loved?
Yeah.
Because maybe they don't go home to a spouse that cares for them. Maybe they don't have friends that care for them. Maybe they're a college student living by themselves, right? And maybe they lost their family during the pandemic. Right?
Yeah.
It fell apart or whatever. And that's where I just realized I have to keep it simple. And I just love Jesus. I don't have the answer. I don't have to have the answer. But you know what? Today stinks. I'll walk today with you because I know Jesus is faithful. And I'll share the testimonies of my life because that's true. That I can share with people, right? How he saved my marriage, years and years ago, 7 years in. I mean, if it wasn't for Jesus, I wouldn't be here today. I can say that unequivocally.
Man, but worship, we do that all the time at home with my guitar, and we will just worship and sing and declare. But that Psalm 46, no matter what happens, this life shaking, everything can fall apart. But the God of Jacob is my fortress, no matter what is happening in this season. And doing that for our kids and doing it for our family, we've been really just saying, life is difficult, life is hard, but God is good. No matter what. So. Hey, thanks so much for joining the conversation today. I hope you're blessed. I hope you're anchored in Jesus. And I pray this spurs you on. Be encouraged, church. Love you guys. That'll work. I like that.
It feels real. You know what I mean?
Feels real.
What it is, it's not like crazy